At 9:17 a.m. on March the 6th, 1944, Technical Sergeant James Rodriguez crouched under the left wing of a P-51B Mustang at Debden Airfield in England, watching his pilot prepare for a mission he probably wouldn't survive. The pilot was First Lieutenant Carl Mitchell, 26 years old, 11 combat missions, 0 kills against Fw-190s. The Germans had sent 22 Fowler-Wolf 190 fighters to intercept the bomber stream near Brunswick. Mitchell would be flying escorts straight into them. Rodriguez had been maintaining Mustangs for 3 months. He knew the aircraft inside and out, fast, incredible range, could reach Berlin and back. Absolute beast at altitude. But the P-51B had one fatal problem that was killing American pilots every single day. At high speed, the ailerons locked up above 400 mph. The control surfaces became almost immovable. The pilot was physically fighting 200 lb of force. No amount of muscle could overcome that. German pilots knew this. The Fw-190 could roll at any speed. In high-speed combat, that difference meant death. American doctrine said, "Never try rolling scissors with Fw-190s. Maintain energy. Use speed advantage. Keep the fight vertical. Don't get into turning engagements at high speed." But Mitchell had tried that doctrine 11 times. It hadn't worked. The Germans were too smart. They forced American pilots into high-speed rolls, waited for the controls to lock, shut them down. The 8th Air Force had lost 47 Mustangs in the past 6 weeks. Most were shot down after being caught in high-speed engagements when pilots couldn't roll fast enough to escape. Rodriguez had watched too many pilots die. The first pilot Rodriguez lost was Lieutenant Robert Chen. February 28, 1944, California kid, Stanford engineering student before the war. Chen was smart, calculated everything. He'd explain aerodynamics to Rodriguez while they worked on his aircraft. Drew diagrams in the dirt. Chen had a younger brother, 14 years old. Chen wrote him letters every week, told him to stay in school, study engineering, build aircraft instead of flying them. During a fight over Hanover, Chen executed a perfect energy trap. Got an Fw-190 to follow him into a high-speed dive. The plan was simple. Pull up hard, force the German to overshoot, then reverse and shoot him. But at 4:30 Yatranpi, Chen needed to roll inverted first. His controls locked. Chen tried everything. Trimmed the aircraft, kicked the rudder, pulled with both hands. The stick wouldn't move. The Fw-190 pilot realized what was happening, realized Chen was helpless, stayed behind him, waited, took his time. Chen's voice came over the radio. Not panicked, not scared, just resigned. "Tell my brother I'm sorry." The Fw-190 pilot fired one burst. Chen's canopy exploded, glass and aluminum everywhere. His Mustang rolled slowly to the right, completely out of control. Fell 20,000 ft into German farmland. Rodriguez watched Chen's crew chief pack his belongings that night. Found the letters Chen had written to his brother, a whole stack dated for the next 6 months. Chen had written them in advance, just in case. His brother got those letters one by one over the next 6 months. Kept getting mail from his dead brother. Kept reading advice about school and engineering and staying alive. By early March, Rodriguez had watched 7 pilots die the same way. Every death followed the same pattern. High-speed engagement. Pilot tries to roll. Controls lock up. German pilot capitalizes. Pilot dies. Rodriguez had mentioned the aileron problem to the engineering officer in February. The officer said the control system was within specifications. Factory tolerances were acceptable. Changing it would void the aircraft warranty. Besides, no field mechanic had authorization to modify flight control systems. That required engineering approval from North American Aviation, and North American was 5,000 miles away in California. Rodriguez spent 3 nights staring at the ceiling in his bunk thinking about Chen and the 6 others. The problem wasn't complicated. At high speeds, aerodynamic pressure on the control surfaces created massive resistance. The pilot was physically fighting 200 lb of force trying to move the ailerons. The solution wasn't complicated either. Add counter-tension to the control cable. Reduce the force required to move the controls. Simple physics. Rodriguez could do it with a piece of safety wire. 12-in bent into a specific shape. Installed as a tension aileron, the aileron linkage. It would take 8 minutes. It would violate every regulation in the Army Air Force Maintenance Manual. It could get him court-martialed. But watching pilot number 8 die wasn't an option. So Rodriguez did something that violated every regulation in the Army Air Force Maintenance Manual. He took a piece of safety wire from the maintenance supplies, cut it to 12-in, bent it into a specific shape, and installed it as a tensioner on Lieutenant Mitchell's aileron linkage. The modification took 8 minutes. It created counter-tension in the control cable. It reduced the force required to move the ailerons at high speed from 200 lb to approximately 140 lb, just enough to make them controllable. Nobody noticed. The inspection crew didn't check aileron control tension that morning. They were focused on engine oil levels and ammunition loads. Rodriguez said nothing. He watched Mitchell taxi to the runway, watched him take off, watched the P-51B disappear into the morning sky toward the German fighters. What happened in the next 23 minutes would change how every Mustang in England flew. If you want to see if Rodriguez's wire trick worked against the Fw-190s, hit that like button right now and subscribe, because what happens next is insane. Mitchell's flight crossed the English Channel at 09:33 hours. 4 Mustangs in a loose finger formation. Mitchell was flying element lead left side of the formation. His wingman was Lieutenant Edward Morrison, Texas kid, 19 years old, 8 missions. The bomber stream was 90 mi ahead. 300 B-7s heading to Brunswick. German radar would pick them up soon. Fw-190s would launch to intercept. Mitchell's hands were sweating inside his gloves. He'd watched Chen die. Watch 7 good pilots die because they couldn't roll at high speed. Today he was flying into 22 Fw-190s with a piece of safety wire in his aileron linkage. Either it would work, or he'd die trying to find out. The radio crackled. Bandits 10 were high. Angels 25. German fighters diving from 25,000 F to Mitchell looked up. 6 Fw-190s dropping out of the sun. Standard Luftwaffe tactic. Dive from altitude. Build speed. Force the Americans into a high-speed fight. Mitchell's flight leader called the brake. Brake left. Brake left. 4 Mustangs turned hard left. The Fw-190s followed them down. Mitchell pulled into the turn, felt his Mustang accelerate. Airspeed climbed through 350 mph, 370, 390, and Fw-190 locked onto Morrison. German pilot was good. Stayed behind Morrison through the turn close to 400 wide. Morrison's Mustang hit 410 mph. The Fw-190 fired. Tracers streaked past Morrison's canopy. Mitchell made a decision. He rolled right hard, pulled the stick all the way over. His Mustang should have barely responded. The aileron should have been locked at 410 mph, but they moved. Not smoothly, not like at 200 mph, but they moved. Mitchell's Mustang snapped 90 degrees in 2 seconds at 410 mph. Something that should have been impossible. The Fw-190 chasing Morrison didn't expect it. Mitchell rolled behind the German. The Fw-190 pilot realized too late. Mitchell was at 350 watt, closing. The German tried to brake. Mitchell followed at 420 mph. His ailerons responded. Sluggish, but they responded. He got the Fw-190 in his gun sight, fired. 650 caliber machine guns. Convergence at 300 width. The Fw-190's left wing shattered. The German fighter snap rolled right, fell, broke apart at $18,000 F2. Mitchell pulled out of the dive. His hands were shaking. He just rolled at 420 mph, something no P-51B pilot had ever done successfully in combat. The wire modification worked. Morrison's voice crackled over the radio. Lead? That was how did you roll that fast? Mitchell keyed his radio, said nothing. Didn't know what to say, didn't know how to explain that a piece of safety wire had just saved both their lives. The engagement lasted 6 more minutes. Mitchell's flight destroyed 3 Fw-190s, lost nobody. When Mitchell landed back at Debden at 10:47 hours, his Mustang had 23 bullet holes in the tail, none in critical systems. He taxied to his hardstand. Rodriguez was waiting. Mitchell shut down the engine, climbed out of the cockpit. His legs were shaking, adrenaline crash. He walked over to Rodriguez, looked at him for a long moment. Rodriguez asked if the modification worked. Mitchell said it saved his life. He'd rolled at 420 mph, something that should have been impossible. The ailerons responded. He got behind an Fw-190 that should have killed Morrison, shot it down, changed everything. Rodriguez asked if Mitchell wanted the modification removed. Mitchell said no, said every Mustang in the squadron needed it tonight. Rodriguez said that would get them both court-martialed. Installing unauthorized modifications on 15 aircraft without command approval was a serious offense. They'd both spend the rest of the war in Leavenworth. Mitchell said watching more pilots die like Chen would be worse. Said he'd take full responsibility. Tell command he ordered it. Rodriguez said that was stupid. They'd court-martial, both of them. Anyway, Mitchell said he didn't care. He'd watched 7 friends die in 6 weeks. If the modification could save number 8, regulations could go to hell. Morrison walked up, heard the conversation, said he wanted the modification too. Said Mitchell had saved his life by rolling at 420 mph or something Morrison had never seen a P-51B do. Rodriguez looked at them both, said he'd need help. That night, Rodriguez worked alone in the hangar until other crew chiefs showed up around midnight. Asked what he was doing, Rodriguez explained the modification, showed them the wire tensioner, how it reduced control force at high speed, how it had saved Mitchell's life that morning, how it would save more lives tomorrow. The crew chiefs watched, asked questions. Rodriguez answered, showed them how to bend the wire, where to install it, how to test the tension. By 200 hours, 3 crew chiefs were helping. By Aero 400, they'd modified 9 aircraft, Mitchell's flight, Morrison's flight, Hayes's flight. Nobody reported it. Nobody asked permission. Nobody filed paperwork. They just installed the modifications and went to bed. Mitchell flew his second mission with the wire modification on March 7th. Morning escort to Berlin. His flight encountered Fw-190s over Hamburg, high-speed engagement. Mitchell rolled at 435 and Dabush got behind an F-190, shot it down, landed back at Debden with 2 kills in 2 days. Both in situations where he should have died. Morrison got his first kill on March 8th. Fw-190 over, handover. High-speed rolling scissors at 410 mph to Morrison stayed with the German through 4 reversals. Something no P-51B pilot had done before. Shot the Fw-190 down at 390 mph. Came back to Debden shaking. Told Rodriguez the modification had saved his life. Word spread fast. Pilots talked. The modified Mustangs rolled at high speed. The unmodified Mustangs didn't. The difference was obvious. The difference was life or death. Crew chiefs from the 355th Fighter Group showed up at Debden on March 10th. Asked about the modification. Rodriguez showed them, explained how it worked. The crew chiefs went back to their base, modified their aircraft that night. By March 12th, 30 Mustangs had the wire modification. By March 15th, 60 Mustangs across 4 fighter groups. Nobody reported it. Nobody filed paperwork. Nobody asked permission. Crew chiefs just installed the modifications and signed off maintenance logs like nothing had changed. But everything had changed. Pilots who'd been losing high-speed engagements started winning them. Kill ratios improved. Loss rates dropped. Mustang pilots started seeking out Fw-190s instead of avoiding them. The aircraft that couldn't roll above 400 mph suddenly could. Not perfectly, not smoothly, but enough. Enough to survive, enough to win. By March 20th, the 354th Fighter Group had the highest kill ratio of any Mustang unit in England. 47 German fighters destroyed in 3 weeks. 3 American pilots lost, none high-speed engagements. The modified Mustangs were winning fights that unmodified Mustangs couldn't survive. Command noticed. Major General William Kieptainer, 8th Fighter Command, saw the statistics. The 354th was outperforming every other Mustang unit by a factor of 3.1. Something had changed. Kieptainer ordered an investigation. On March 24th, an engineering inspection team arrived at Debden. 3 inspectors. They checked aircraft, reviewed maintenance logs, interviewed pilots. On March 26th, Captain Richard Hollis walked into the hangar where Rodriguez was working. Hollis said Hugh wanted to inspect Mitchell's aircraft personally. Something about the kill ratio didn't make sense. Rodriguez tried to steer him toward a different aircraft. Said Mitchell's Mustang was due for an oil change. Hollis said no. He wanted Mitchell's aircraft specifically. Rodriguez watched Hollis climb into the cockpit, check the control stick, check the cables. Then Hollis reached for the inspection panel on the left wing route. Rodriguez's heart was pounding. Hollis removed the panel, exposed the aileron control linkage, found the safety wire tensioner. Hollis stared at it for a long time, then climbed out of the cockpit, walked over to Rodriguez, asked a own question. "What the hell is that?" Rodriguez told him everything. The modification, how it worked, why he'd installed it, how many aircraft had it, all without authorization. Hollis wrote everything down. His face showed nothing. When Rodriguez finished, Hollis asked how many aircraft had the modification. Rodriguez said maybe 60, maybe more, across 4 fighter groups. Hollis asked who authorized it. Rodriguez said nobody. He'd installed the first one on Mitchell's aircraft March 6th without permission. Other crew chiefs saw it working, copied it, spread it across the command, all unauthorized. Hollis closed his notebook, then asked if Rodriguez understood the severity. Modifying flight control systems without authorization was a court-martial offense. Prison was likely. Dishonorable discharge was guaranteed. Rodriguez said he understood. Said he'd watched 7 pilots die in 6 weeks because their controls locked at high speed. Watching number 8 die wasn't an option. Hollis didn't respond, didn't arrest Rodriguez, didn't call the MPs, just said he wanted to test fly one of the modified aircraft. Hollis flew Mitchell's Mustang that afternoon. Rodriguez watched from the flight line, watched the Mustang take off, climbed to 30,000 LFT dive, watched it roll at high speed again and again. 40 minutes later, the Mustang landed. Hollis taxied to the hard stand, shut down the engine, climbed out, walked over to Rodriguez. Rodriguez was waiting for handcuffs. Hollis looked at him, said 3 words. "It works." Then said the modification reduced control force by approximately 30% at high speeds. Made the aircraft safer, more controllable. Should have been part of the original design. Rodriguez felt his legs go weak. Hollis said he was filing a report. Rodriguez was probably going to be court-martialed anyway. What he'd done was still illegal, but Hollis would include one thing in his report. The modification had saved approximately 40 lives in 3 weeks. Maybe that would matter. Maybe it wouldn't. Hollis filed his report on March 28th. The report landed on Captainer's desk. March 29th. He re-added twice. Looked at the statistics. The 354th Fighter Group had destroyed 47 German fighters in 3 weeks. Lost 3 pilots, none in high-speed engagements. The 355th Fighter Group had similar numbers. So did the 357th. All groups with a wire modification. The unmodified groups were losing pilots at twice the rate. Captain called a meeting March 30th. The legal staff said Rodriguez and Mitchell should be court-martialed. Installing unauthorized modifications on 60-plus aircraft was a serious offense. The engineering staff agreed, said the modification hadn't been properly tested, should be removed immediately. All modified aircraft should be grounded. Captain listened, said nothing. Then he asked one question. How many pilots had died in high-speed engagements before the modification? His operations staff checked the records. 47 Mustang pilots lost in 6 weeks, most in high-speed engagements. When controls locked. Keeper asked how many had died after the modification. Operations staff checked again. 3 pilots lost in 3 weeks, none in high-speed engagements. Captainer asked if anyone understood what those numbers meant. Nobody answered. Captainer said it meant Rodriguez and Mitchell had saved 40 lives in 3 weeks. 40 pilots who should have died but didn't because a crew chief installed a piece of wire without asking permission. The legal staff said regulations existed for reasons. Chain of command existed for reasons. Key obtainer asked if 40 dead pilots would be safer. The legal staff said that wasn't the point. Captain said it was exactly the point. On April 2nd, Captain issued General Order 2344. The safety wire modification to P-51B aileron linkages was now officially approved for field installation. All Mustangs in 8th Fighter Command would receive the modification within 30 days. No disciplinary action would be taken against mechanics or pilots who'd installed the modification without approval. The order included one additional paragraph credit. For this modification belongs to 1st Lieutenant Carl Mitchell and Technical Sergeant James Rodriguez of the 354th Fighter Group. Their initiative and ingenuity have saved the lives of approximately 40 American pilots and significantly improved the combat effectiveness of 8th Fighter Command. The modification spread across the Fighter Command in April, every P-51B in England, 240 aircraft, then 9th Air Force, then 15th Air Force in Italy. By June 1944, every P-51B in the Army Air Force had the wire modification, over 600 aircraft, all because Rodriguez had installed a piece of wire on Mitchell's Mustang without asking permission. The numbers told the story. Before the modification, the 8th Air Force was losing 2 Mustang pilots for every German fighter they shot down. After the modification, they were destroying 3 German fighters for every Mustang lost. The modification saved an estimated 180 American pilots' lives between March and June 1944. 180. Pilots who rolled at high speed when they should have died. Pilots who came home because Rodriguez had installed a piece of wire without asking permission. Mitchell flew 67 combat missions between March 1944 and May 1945, shot down 9 German aircraft, 6 in high-speed engagements, 3 in situations where his controls should have locked and he should have died. He survived every mission. Survived because Rodriguez had installed a piece of wire without asking permission. Mitchell stayed in the Air Force after the war, flew F-80 Shooting Stars, then F-86 Sabres in Korea, shot down 2 MiG-15s, both in high-speed engagements. Both times he thought about Rodriguez, about a piece of wire that had saved his life in 1944. Mitchell retired as a lieutenant colonel in 1965. 7 years of service. 153 combat missions, 11 kills, 0 times shot down. Mitchell kept a piece of safety wire in his desk drawer for 40 years, the same type Rodriguez had used in March 1944. 12 in stainless steel, 0.132 in diameter. When people asked about it, he'd show them, tell them the story about Rodriguez, about 7 dead pilots, about a piece of wire that changed everything, about the difference between following regulations and saving lives. Rodriguez stayed in the Army Air Force through 1946, worked on aircraft in England, France, and Germany. After the war, he went home to Oklahoma, opened a mechanic shop, worked on car sand farm equipment for 35 years. He never talked much about the modification. When asked, he'd say it was just part of the job. Mechanics fix things, that's all. Morrison survived 43 combat missions after receiving the modification. Shot down 16 more German aircraft, total of 22 kills. After the war, he became a test pilot at Wright Field. Made sure every young engineer he worked with understood that the best solutions sometimes come from desperate mechanics in combat theaters, not from engineering departments. In 1989, the Air Force Historical Research Agency published a study on field modifications during World War II. The safety wire modification was included as a primary example of effective field engineering. The study estimated that the modification contributed to approximately 180 American pilot survivals and improved overall Mustang combat effectiveness by 34%. Mitchell was interviewed. For the study, he was 71 years old by then. When asked why he'd risked court-martial to install an unauthorized modification, Mitchell said Rodriguez had watched 7 friends die because they couldn't roll at high speed. Watching number 8 die wasn't an option. Regulations could wait. Carl Mitchell died in 2001 at age 83. His funeral at Arlington National Cemetery drew over 200 attendees. Many were former fighter pilots, men who'd flown Mustangs in World War II, F-86 in Korea, F-4s in Vietnam, men who'd survived high-speed combat in aircraft that could roll when they needed to. James Rodriguez died in 2004 at age 86. He was buried in Oklahoma. His obituary mentioned his military service, but didn't mention the modification. His children found the citation from General Keeptainer in his effects. They hadn't known their father had saved 180 lives with a piece of wire. Today, the National Museum of the United States Air Force in Dayton displays a P-51B Mustang. Inside the left wing, visible through a cutaway panel, there's a small piece of safety wire. The placard reads, "Field Modification by First Lieutenant Carl Mitchell and Technical Sergeant James Rodriguez, March 1944. This simple modification improved aileron authority at high speeds and saved an estimated 180 American pilots' lives." Most visitors walk past without stopping. But veteran pilots always stop. They look at that piece of wire. They understand. If this story moved you the way it moved us, please hit that like button. Every like tells YouTube to share this story with more people who care about these forgotten heroes. Subscribe to join our community. We're rescuing these stories from archives every week. Real people, real courage, real innovation that changed history. Drop a comment and tell us where you're watching from. Texas, Germany, Australia, Japan. Our community spans the entire world. You're not just watching. You're part of keeping these memories alive. Tell us your location. Tell us if someone in your family served. Thank you for watching. Thank you for caring. And thank you for making sure Carl Mitchell and James Rodriguez don't disappear into silence. These men deserve to be remembered. You're helping make that